You can't just ignore me. Jason Hart's voice cracked through the Sunday morning quiet, his hand wrapped around her wrist like a vice. Let go. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted, panic rising as strangers lifted their phones, the room tightening around her. Not until you explain why you've been avoiding me. She tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened. Please, you're hurting me. And then the air in the cafe changed, sharp, still, electric. Step away from her. Jasmine felt it before she saw him, a presence that made the chaos around her go still and sharp. The voice was low and controlled, deadly in its calm. It didn't need to be loud. It carried the kind of authority that made men straighten their spines. Jason's head snapped up, and Jasmine found herself turning too, following the sound to its source. The man standing 3 feet away was devastating. There was no other word for it. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that made the black cashmere cling to him like armor. His face was a study in precision and danger, high cut-glass cheekbones, a jaw built for command, and lips far too sensual for the hard, unreadable eyes above them. Those eyes. Dark, and fixed on Jason with the kind of focus that made small prey animals freeze. Ink crawled up his neck from beneath his collar, intricate patterns, stark and deliberate, the kind that spoke of choices made once and carried forever. His hands, tucked casually in the pockets of tailored black slacks, suggested he didn't need to ball them into fists to be dangerous. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows felt suddenly too bright, too exposing. She could see her friend Diane frozen at their table, phone halfway to her ear, unsure whether to call for help. The baristas had stopped mid-pour. A businessman in the corner set down his newspaper. This doesn't concern you, Jason said, but his voice had lost its edge. His hand was already loosening on Jasmine's wrist. The stranger's expression didn't change. He simply existed in the space, immovable and absolute, and somehow that was more terrifying than any threat. You're touching her after she asked you to stop. Each word was precisely delivered, like a surgeon making incisions. That concerns me. Jason dropped her wrist. The stranger's gaze flickered to Jasmine for half a second, assessing, cataloging, before returning to Jason. Leave. Don't come back to this establishment. Don't contact her again. The stranger tilted his head slightly. Are we clear? It wasn't a question. Jason stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a chair in his haste to put distance between himself and that quiet, devastating presence. He shot Jasmine one last look, wounded, angry, desperate, before shoving through the cafe door and disappearing into the LA morning. The silence that followed was deafening. Jasmine's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to steady herself, trying to breathe through the adrenaline still flooding her system. Her wrist throbbed where Jason had grabbed her. The cafe was slowly returning to life around them, conversations resuming in hushed tones, phones being tucked away, the espresso machine hissing back to life. Are you hurt? The stranger had stepped closer, and his scent wrapped around her, subtle, expensive, and dangerously compelling. His voice had softened, just fractionally, losing that razor edge. Jasmine looked up at him, really looked, and the ground dropped out from under her. She knew those eyes. She knew the exact shape of that mouth, even though it had been a decade since she'd spent hours memorizing it from across a high school classroom. She knew the way he held himself, perfectly still, like he was always listening, always watching, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. Kongmin. His name came out as barely a whisper. Something flickered across his face. Relief? Pain? It was gone too quickly to name. Jasmine. He said her name like he'd been holding it in his mouth for years, waiting for permission to speak it aloud. The cafe spun. 10 years collapsed into this single moment, every humiliation, every whispered rumor, every night she'd cried herself to sleep wondering what she'd done wrong. The shy boy who'd sent her anonymous gifts, who'd finally signed his name to that last note, who'd promised to meet her at La Rosa on Valentine's Day. Who'd never shown up. No. She stepped back, nearly tripping over her own chair. No, you don't get to, you already scarred me once, Choi Kang. I'm not doing this again. The words came out sharp, defensive, laced with a hurt she thought she'd buried years ago. Diane was beside her now, hand on her elbow, murmuring something about leaving, about going home, but Jasmine couldn't hear her over the roaring in her ears. Kongmin's face had gone carefully blank, but his eyes looked like she'd just torn open a wound he'd spent years stitching shut. Jasmine, please. I can explain. Explain. The laugh that escaped her was hollow. You want to explain standing me up? Explaining how every single person in our school saw me sitting alone at that restaurant, waiting for you like an idiot? How they took pictures. How it became a joke that followed me through graduation. She could see it all again, the decorated table at La Rosa, the single rose in a vase, her new dress from the mall. The way hope had slowly curdled into humiliation as minutes turned into hours. The flash of camera phones. The laughter. You moved back to Seoul, she continued, her voice breaking. You just left. And I spent years wondering what I did wrong, what made me so unlovable that you'd go to all that trouble just to humiliate me. No. The word came out hoarse, desperate. Jasmine, it wasn't like that. I never wanted. I don't care what you wanted. She grabbed her purse, her coffee abandoned and cold on the table. Stay away from me, Kangmin. I mean it. She didn't look back as Diane guided her toward the exit. She couldn't. Because if she looked back and saw that expression on his face, that devastating combination of regret and longing, she might actually listen. She might actually let herself hope again. And Jasmine Williams had learned 10 years ago that hope was the most dangerous thing of all. The apartment was too quiet. Jasmine sat on her couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the 17 missed calls from Jason on her phone. The texts had started around midnight and hadn't stopped. I'm sorry. Please talk to me. You can't just throw away what we had. I know you still love me. I'll prove it to you. She didn't love him. She'd barely liked him by the end, but Jason had never been good at accepting reality when it contradicted what he wanted to believe. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Jason. Diane, girl. I just Googled your mysterious savior. Call me. Now. Jasmine ignored it. She didn't need to Google Choi Kang. She'd spent enough of her teenage years doing exactly that, searching for any trace of the boy who'd disappeared from her life, trying to understand why. She'd found nothing then. Just silence. Now he was back, and he was different. The quiet, intense boy she remembered had been handsome in an understated way, all awkward grace and careful movements. This man, the one who'd stepped between her and Jason like violence was a language he spoke fluently, was something else entirely. Dangerous. That was the word that kept circling through her mind. Her phone rang. Diane, predictably undeterred. I'm fine, Jasmine said instead of hello. He owns half of Los Angeles. Diane's voice was breathless with gossip and concern. Choi Holdings. Real estate, nightclubs, restaurants, import-export. There are rumors, Jasmine. Dark ones. Money laundering. Organized crime connections. He's not just rich, he's that kind of rich. Jasmine closed her eyes. I know who his family is. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you just told a very dangerous man to stay away from you. A very dangerous, very powerful man who clearly has not forgotten about you. It was 10 years ago, Diane. Then why did he look at you like you were the only person in that entire cafe? Because he had. Even in that brief moment before she'd recognized him, she'd felt the weight of his attention like a physical touch. Focused. Absolute. Consuming. I have to go, Jasmine said. Jasmine. She hung up and immediately regretted it. The silence of her apartment felt oppressive now, full of memories she'd worked hard to bury. She could still see herself at 17, bookish, shy, carrying too many pounds and not enough confidence. The girl who'd been targeted by Sarah Lake and her crew, who'd had her lunch knocked over, her homework stolen, her locker vandalized. The girl who'd started receiving anonymous gifts. It had begun in January of senior year. A book she'd mentioned wanting in English class, left in her locker with a note, thought you'd enjoy this. Then a coffee card to her favorite cafe. A scarf in her favorite color. Each gift accompanied by carefully written messages that made her feel seen in a way she'd never experienced. You have the most beautiful smile. I wish you'd show it more. Don't let them make you small. You're extraordinary. I think about you constantly. By February, she'd been desperately in love with her secret Valentine, whoever he was. She'd spent hours analyzing handwriting, trying to figure out who among her classmates could be capable of such thoughtfulness. She'd never considered Kangmin. He was quiet, kept to himself, never seemed to notice anyone. And then came the final note, slipped into her locker on February 13th. Meet me at La Rosa tomorrow at 7 p.m. I can't hide anymore. I need you to know it's me. Choi Kang. She'd been terrified and elated in equal measure. Kangmin was handsome in a way that made girls whisper, intense, mysterious, with a stillness that suggested depths she'd only glimpsed in passing. That he'd noticed her, chosen her, seemed impossible. She'd gone to La Rosa in her best dress, heart hammering, palms sweating. She'd waited at the table he'd reserved, watching the door, certain he'd walk through any moment. He never did. By 8:30, Sarah Lake had appeared with half their class, cameras ready. The photos had been on every social media platform by morning. Jasmine Williams stood up on Valentine's Day. Who would want to date her anyway? The shame had been crushing. 3 days later, someone mentioned Kangmin had moved back to Korea. Family emergency, they'd said. She'd never heard from him again. Until today. Her phone buzzed. Not Jason this time. An unknown number. Unknown, I never forgot you. Her pulse stumbled. She knew somehow, exactly who this was. Unknown, I know you don't want to hear from me. But I couldn't let you think, even for a moment, that you were forgettable. You've been the only thing I haven't been able to forget. Her hands were shaking. She should block the number. Delete the messages. Protect herself from the possibility of being hurt again. Instead, she found herself reading his words over and over, hating how much they made her want to believe. The knocking started at 11 p.m. Jasmine looked through the peephole and felt ice slide through her veins. Jason stood in the hallway, swaying slightly, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. I know you're in there, Jasmine. I can see your light on. She stepped away from the door, pulse racing. Her apartment had a doorman, building security. How had he gotten up here? We need to talk about this. His voice rose. You can't just move on like I meant nothing. Like we meant nothing. Jason, go home. I'm calling the police. Call them. I don't care. He slammed his palm against the door, making her jump. I've given you everything. Everything. And you throw it away for what? Some tattooed thug who doesn't even know you? The building manager must have heard the commotion because she could hear movement in the hallway, voices raised in warning. Jason was still yelling, but the words had become incoherent, desperate. Security eventually escorted him out. The building manager, Mrs. Russo, knocked softly on her door. I'm so sorry, Ms. Williams. We've noted his description. He won't be allowed back in the building. Jasmine thanked her, locked her door, and slid down to sit on the floor, shaking. This was escalating. Jason had always been intense, possessive, but this was different. This was obsession tinged with something darker. Her phone lit up with another unknown message. Unknown, are you safe? I have people watching your building. They said there was an incident. The fact that he had people watching should have terrified her. Instead, she felt an unwelcome surge of relief. Jasmine, stop watching me. Unknown, I can't. Not until I know you're protected. Jasmine, from what? Unknown, from anyone who would hurt you. Including me, if that's what you need. She stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. Jasmine, you already did hurt me. The response came immediately. Unknown, I know. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. But first, I need you to understand why. Jasmine, I don't want to understand. I want to forget it ever happened. Unknown, I thought about you every Valentine's Day for 10 years, Jasmine. I thought about the girl I left waiting. The girl I loved. The girl I still love. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Jasmine, don't. Unknown, I'm sorry. I'll stop. But please, if you need me, for anything, call this number. Day or night. I'll come. She didn't respond. But she also didn't block the number. And when she finally fell asleep at 3 a.m., she dreamed of dark eyes and gentle hands and a quiet voice saying her name. Absolutely not. Diane shook her head, nearly spilling her martini. You are not staying home Friday night because of Jason. We have VIP passes to Spade. Jasmine picked at her salad, uncomfortable. I just don't feel like going out. Since when? Her friend Tanya leaned across the table, perfectly manicured eyebrows raised. Jasmine Williams, you love dancing. You live for girls' night. Jason has taken enough from you, don't let him take this too. She knew they were right. She'd been hiding for 3 weeks, ever since the cafe incident. Jason's texts had slowed to a trickle, probably because of the restraining order her lawyer was processing, but his silence felt more ominous than reassuring. And Kongmin. She hadn't heard from him since that night. No messages. No calls. Nothing. She told herself she was relieved. Fine, she heard herself say. But I'm not staying past midnight. Tanya squealed and pulled out her phone. I'm texting Kyle. He got us on the list for Spade, you know, that club that just opened downtown? Impossible to get into. Celebrities only. I don't know how he managed it. Jasmine's stomach tightened with unease, but she pushed it away. She was 28 years old. She had a successful therapy practice, a nice apartment, good friends. She refused to let fear keep her small. Friday arrived cold and drizzling. Jasmine stood with Diane, Tanya, and Tanya's husband Kyle outside Spade, trying not to shiver in her little black dress and heels. The line stretched around the block, beautiful people in expensive clothes, all clutching phones that showed their names on the list. This is insane, Diane muttered, pulling her jacket tighter. We've been waiting for 40 minutes. Kyle looked uncomfortable. The hostess said everyone's on the list tonight. Some kind of system glitch. It's first come, first served. They shuffled forward incrementally, Jasmine's feet already aching. She could see the entrance now, velvet ropes, intimidating security, a hostess checking names with military precision. Inside, through the glass doors, lights pulsed and bodies moved like a living thing. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the entrance. A man in a suit emerged, followed by another. They spoke briefly to the hostess, who immediately nodded and scanned the crowd. Jasmine's heart skipped when the suited man's gaze locked onto her. Oh shit, Kyle breathed. Oh shit. The man was walking toward them, parting the crowd effortlessly. People grumbled, but one look at his face silenced them. Miss Williams. His voice was professional, his expression neutral. This way, please. Jasmine looked behind her, confused. I think you have the wrong. No, miss. You and your party. Please follow me. The velvet rope was pulled back. The entire line erupted in protests and murmurs, but the suited man simply gestured for them to proceed. Diane grabbed Jasmine's hand and squeezed hard. They were escorted through the main floor, a sea of beautiful people, expensive liquor, music that pulsed in Jasmine's chest, and up a staircase to a private section. A semicircular booth with a perfect view of the club below, plush velvet seating, a table already laden with champagne buckets and bottles of top-shelf liquor. We didn't order this, Jasmine said faintly. The hostess smiled. Compliments of Mr. Choi. Kyle made a strangled sound. Choi Kang. Yes, sir. Please enjoy your evening. Your server will be Matt, he'll take care of anything you need. She glided away, leaving them in stunned silence. Jasmine. Tanya's eyes were wide. What the hell is going on? How do you know Choi Kang? I don't. I mean, I did. We went to high school together. High school together? Kyle looked ill. That's Choi Kang. Do you have any idea who his family is? What they do? Kyle, Tanya warned. No, she needs to know. He turned to Jasmine, his expression serious. The Choi family isn't just rich, Jasmine. They're connected. Korean-American organized crime. The kind of people who make problems disappear. His grandfather runs half the underground in Seoul, and his mother's family controls the West Coast operations. Jasmine's mouth went dry. Those are just rumors. Are they? Kyle gestured to the bottles on their table, thousands of dollars worth of alcohol. This is a Wednesday. This club's been sold out for weeks. But you walk up, and suddenly the velvet rope parts like the Red Sea? That's not money. That's power. I need to talk to him. Jasmine stood, smoothing her dress. Where's his office? The hostess appeared as if summoned. Mr. Choi is upstairs. I'll escort you. The office was all glass and chrome, perched above the club like a throne room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the LA skyline, glittering with possibility and danger. And there, silhouetted against the city lights, was Kongmin. He turned when she entered, and the breath left her lungs. He was wearing a black suit tailored so perfectly it looked painted on. His shirt was open at the collar, revealing more of those intricate tattoos, a phoenix, she realized, winding up his throat. His hair was styled back, emphasizing the sharp beauty of his face. He looked like temptation tailored in Italian wool. Jasmine. Her name was a caress. I hoped you'd come up. You can't do this. She forced steel into her voice, even as her body betrayed her with awareness. You can't just manipulate situations. Give me things I didn't ask for. I gave you a table and some champagne. He moved closer, graceful and predatory. Hardly manipulation. You knew I was here. You were watching. Yes. No shame, no apology. I watch. I wait. I make sure you're safe. That's not your job. It's the only job that matters to me. The words hit her like a physical thing. She took a step back, needing distance, needing to think clearly. But he followed, closing the space between them until she could feel the heat radiating off his body. I don't need you to save me, she said, but her voice came out breathy, uncertain. I know you don't. His hand came up, hovering near her face but not quite touching. You're strong. Capable. You've built a beautiful life. But that doesn't mean you should have to face things alone. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you care? It's been 10 years. Because I never stopped. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I never stopped thinking about you. Wanting you. Loving you. You don't love me. You don't even know me anymore. Then let me. His thumb brushed her cheek, so gentle it made her ache. Let me know you. Let me prove that what I feel is real. She should pull away. She should run. This man was dangerous in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. But the way he looked at her, like she was rare, fragile, and somehow the center of his gravity, made something inside her tilt toward belief. I'm not trying to win you over with money or power, he continued, his other hand coming to rest on her waist, his touch burning through the thin fabric of her dress. I'm giving you what you deserve. Respect. Protection. Attention. Things I should have given you 10 years ago. Kongmin. I know I hurt you. I know I scarred you emotionally. But please, Jasmine. Give me a chance to explain. Give me a chance to show you who I am now. His face was so close she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, could feel his breath against her lips. The temptation to close that final distance was overwhelming. One dinner, she heard herself whisper. You get one dinner to explain. And then I decide. The smile that curved his lips was devastating. One dinner. I'll take it. He stepped back, releasing her, and the loss of his touch felt like cold water. She steadied herself, smoothed her dress, tried to remember how to breathe normally. Your friends are waiting, he said, all business now. Enjoy your evening, Jasmine. You're safe here. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Jasmine. She looked back. You look beautiful tonight. I wanted you to know. Heat flooded through her, settling low in her belly. She fled before she could do something stupid like ask him to kiss her. Downstairs, her friends were wide-eyed and full of questions. But Jasmine barely heard them. Her mind was still upstairs, still trapped in that glass office with a man who looked at her like she was his entire world. A man who terrified her almost as much as he thrilled her. The pounding on her door Sunday morning made Jasmine's heart race with panic. Jason, she thought, her mind immediately jumping to worst-case scenarios. But when she checked the peephole, she saw Diane and Kyle, both looking pale and anxious. We need to talk, Diane said the moment Jasmine opened the door. They filed in, Kyle carrying a homemade cake that looked like it had been assembled by shaking hands. Jasmine's living room suddenly felt too small for the tension radiating off them. What's wrong? Jasmine asked, alarm bells ringing. Is someone hurt? No. I mean not physically. Diane sat on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands. Kyle has something to tell you. Kyle set the cake down with excessive care, like it might explode. We're in trouble. Bad trouble. The story came out in fits and starts: a business loan that had gone bad, money borrowed from the wrong people, threats that had escalated from phone calls to visits to their home. They'd been trying to handle it quietly, not wanting to worry anyone, but the debt had ballooned with interest to an amount they couldn't pay. They came to our house last week, Diane said, her voice cracking. Told Kyle he had 30 days to come up with $50,000 or there would be consequences. Jasmine felt sick. Have you gone to the police? And tell them what? That we borrowed money from loan sharks? That would just make things worse. Kyle ran a hand through his hair. But then, Friday night, at the club, we realized you know him. Choi Kang. I don't really know him, Jasmine protested. We just... Jasmine, please. Diane grabbed her hand. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. But if you could just talk to him, maybe he could. I don't know, make a call? These people, they respect power. And Kangmin, he's connected to people who could make our problem disappear with a word, Kyle finished. Jasmine stared at them, her mind reeling. You want me to ask a man I barely know to interfere with loan sharks? Do you hear how insane that sounds? We know how it sounds. But we're out of options. Diane's eyes filled with tears. We're not asking you to pay the debt. Just ask if he knows someone. If he can help. Please. Against every instinct screaming at her to stay away from Kangmin and his world, Jasmine found herself nodding. Because these were her friends. Because they were terrified. Because somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered if this was exactly the kind of thing a man like Kangmin could fix with a phone call. I'll try, she said. But I'm not promising anything. Choi Holdings occupied a gleaming tower in downtown LA, all steel and glass and understated power. Jasmine felt underdressed in her work slacks and blouse as she approached the reception desk. I'm here to see Ms. Williams. The receptionist smiled like she'd been expecting her. Mr. Choi said to send you up immediately. 32nd floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. Jasmine watched the numbers climb, her heart climbing with them. She hadn't called ahead. She'd barely slept, rehearsing what she'd say, how she'd ask without sounding like she was using him. The elevator opened directly into a reception area more luxurious than her entire apartment. A woman in a sharp suit greeted her immediately. Ms. Williams. Mr. Choi is in his office. This way. His office doors were massive, dark wood inlaid with mother of pearl. The woman knocked once and pushed them open. Kangmin stood behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of black marble. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed him like a painting, the city sprawled beneath him like something he owned. He was in shirt sleeves, his jacket discarded, and even dressed down he radiated authority. His expression when he saw her was pure hunger quickly masked by control. Jasmine. This is a surprise. He gestured to the chairs across from his desk. Please sit. She perched on the edge of the leather chair, clutching her purse like a lifeline. I need to ask you something. It's about my friends. He sat, giving her his complete attention. I'm listening. The words came out in a rush, the debt, the threats, the desperation. She kept her gaze fixed on her hands, unable to watch his face while she essentially asked him to use his criminal connections to help people she cared about. When she finished, silence filled the space between them. Finally, she forced herself to look up. His expression was unreadable. You came here to ask for my help. I know I have no right. You have every right. He stood, moving around the desk with liquid grace. You asked me. That's all the right you need. But the money, $50,000 is done. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then set it aside. The debt is cleared. They'll receive confirmation within the hour. Jasmine's mouth fell open. You didn't even, don't you need to call someone? No. He leaned against his desk, close enough that the scent of him threaded through her breath. Jasmine, you asked me. It's done. I don't understand. The people your friends borrowed from work in territory I control. A word from me and the debt is forgiven. They can pay it back slowly, with no interest, directly to a legitimate financial institution. No more threats. No more fear. The casual way he said it, territory I control, sent chills through her. This is what you do, she whispered. This is your world. Part of it. He tilted his head, studying her. Does it frighten you? Yes. Good. His lips curved slightly. You should be frightened. I'm not a good man, Jasmine. I've done things that would horrify you. But I would never use that power against you. Only for you. She stood on shaking legs. I should go. I need to tell Diane and Kyle. They already know. I had my assistant call them. He moved closer, and she found herself backed against the chair. Stay for a moment. Please. Why? Because you came to me. His hand came up, cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. Because in 10 years, this is the first time you've asked me for anything. And I would give you the world if you'd let me. Her lungs forgot what to do for a moment. This close, she could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the small scar above his right eyebrow. He was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. I can't give you anything in return, she said softly. I don't want anything but your time. Your trust. Eventually, if I'm lucky, your heart. His thumb traced her lower lip, and heat pooled in her belly. Let me earn it, Jasmine. Let me show you I'm worth the risk. She should say no. Should run from this office and never look back. But his touch was so gentle, his eyes so fierce with longing, that she found herself leaning into his palm instead. One dinner, she heard herself say. You promised me an explanation. Saturday night. I'll pick you up at 7. His smile was pure satisfaction. And Jasmine? Wear something beautiful. I want to see you shine. Her phone rang the moment she stepped out of the building. Jasmine. Diane was crying. It's gone. The debt. They called Kyle and said it's been transferred to a payment plan with First National. No interest. They're so sorry for any distress. What did you? I asked, Jasmine said simply, looking back up at the tower. At the 32nd floor, where she could swear she saw a figure watching from the window. And he said yes. Later that night, lying in bed, she replayed the moment when Kongmin had touched her face. The way he'd looked at her like she was something sacred. The casual mention of territory he controlled, of power he wielded with a word. This was the moment she truly understood. Choi Kongmin wasn't just dangerous. He was the kind of dangerous that could reshape reality with a phone call. That could make problems, and people, disappear. And he wanted her. It should have scared her. Instead, a low, dangerous thrill curled through her, warm and unwelcome. She picked up her phone and sent a text before she could change her mind. Jasmine, thank you for helping my friends. His response came immediately, like he'd been waiting. Kongmin, I'd do anything for you. You're starting to understand that, aren't you? Jasmine, I'm starting to. Kongmin, good. Sleep well, Jasmine. Dream of me. She did. The week between agreeing to dinner and Saturday night crawled by in a haze of nervous energy. Jasmine caught herself checking her appearance in every reflective surface, mentally cataloging her wardrobe, wondering what something beautiful meant to a man who could probably buy and sell Rodeo Drive. It was Valentine's Day, and she felt a little cliché going on a date tonight, but she didn't mind. Jason had gone quiet, which should have been a relief. Instead, it felt ominous. The restraining order was in place, but paper didn't stop obsession. Saturday arrived cold and clear. At 6:30, Jasmine stood in front of her mirror in a deep burgundy dress that hugged her curves, flowed around her thighs, and made her skin glow. She'd spent an hour on her makeup, another on her hair. She looked beautiful, she realized with surprise. She looked like someone who deserved to be taken seriously. The knock came at exactly 7. Kongmin stood in her doorway in a black suit, holding a single white rose. His eyes traveled over her slowly, hungrily, before meeting her gaze. You're devastating, he said, voice rough. May I? He held out the rose. When she took it, his fingers brushed hers, sending electricity up her arm. Thank you. She inhaled the delicate scent. I'll just leave it, please. He caught her hand. I want to give you the evening I owe you. Starting now. The car waiting at the curb was sleek and expensive, a driver holding the door. Kongmin's hand settled on the small of her back, warm through the thin fabric of her dress. He guided her in with a touch that was possessive and gentle in equal measure. They drove through LA as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jasmine tried to make conversation, but Kongmin seemed content to simply watch her, his gaze intense and unwavering. "You're staring," she said finally. "I'm memorizing." He shifted closer, his thigh pressing against hers. 10 years I waited to see you like this. Beautiful and here and mine for an evening. Forgive me for wanting to remember every detail. Heat crept up her neck. I'm not yours. Not yet. His fingers found hers, lacing together. But you will be. I'm patient, Jasmine. I've waited a decade. I can wait longer. The car pulled up to La Rosa. Jasmine's breath caught. It was the same restaurant, exactly as she remembered, the white lights, the romantic patio, the door painted the color of a blooming rose. Kongmin. I want to rewrite that night. He helped her from the car, his hand never leaving hers. Not erase it. I can't change what happened. But I can give you the evening you deserved. They were escorted to a private section of the patio, sheltered by flowering vines and soft lighting. The table was set with white linens, candles, a single rose in a crystal vase. It was exactly how she remembered, down to the smallest detail. How did you? I called them the day after I saw you in the cafe. They helped me recreate it. He pulled out her chair, his hands lingering on her shoulders. Sit, please. The meal that followed was perfect, course after course of beautifully prepared food, wine that tasted like velvet, conversation that flowed easier than it should have. Kongmin was attentive, charming, asking about her work as a therapist, her life, her dreams. He listened like every word mattered. But Jasmine could feel the weight of the past sitting between them, waiting to be acknowledged. Tell me why you didn't come, she said finally, setting down her wine glass. The real reason. His expression shuttered. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn with age and handling. This was my father. He unfolded it carefully. It was a newspaper article in Korean. He died the morning of our date. Heart attack. Sudden and catastrophic. Jasmine's hand flew to her mouth. My grandfather called at 6 a.m. My mother was hysterical. I was 17, Jasmine. I didn't know what to do. My grandfather said come home immediately. Bring your mother. There were arrangements to be made. Family obligations. His voice was carefully controlled, but she could hear the pain beneath it. We left for Seoul that afternoon. I tried to call you, but I didn't have your number. I'd been too shy to ask for it. I thought about driving to your house, but my grandfather's men were already at our door, waiting to escort us to the airport. I thought about sending a message through school, but everything happened so fast. He looked at her then, and his eyes were haunted. I thought about you on the plane. I thought about you at the funeral. I thought about you every single day as my grandfather trained me to take my father's place in the family. He was molding me into the man he needed me to be. Strong. Ruthless. Unbreakable. Why didn't you contact me later? Her voice cracked. After things settled? Because I knew what I was becoming. He took her hand, his grip almost painful. I knew the world I was being pulled into. The violence. The danger. I thought you deserved better than a boy being shaped into a monster. I thought staying away was the kindness. That wasn't your choice to make. I know that now. He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. I was young and stupid and trying to protect you from something I didn't fully understand yet. But I never forgot you. Every Valentine's Day, I'd remember you sitting alone in this restaurant. I'd imagine what I would have said if I'd been there. How I would have told you that you were the first person who ever made me want to be soft. Tears blurred her vision. Kongmin. I came back for you. His voice was fierce now. 3 months ago, I moved my base of operations to LA. I bought the club. I made sure I'd be wherever you might be. Because 10 years was long enough. I needed to find you. I needed to know if what I felt was real or just a boy's fantasy. And she barely breathed the word. It's more real than anything I've ever known. He stood, pulling her up with him. You're the only good thing I've ever wanted, Jasmine. The only pure thing in my life. And I would never let anyone hurt you again. Including myself. He pulled something from his pocket, a small black box. Her heart stuttered. This isn't what you think, he said quickly, reading her panic. It's not a ring. It's something I should have given you 10 years ago. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant, a single rose. The rose I never brought you that night, he explained. I had it commissioned a month ago. Look at the back. She turned it over. Engraved in tiny script, February 14th, present day, the day I finally showed up. I want to give you every Valentine's Day I missed, he continued, fastening it around her neck, his fingers brushing her skin and making her shiver. Every gift, every moment, every promise. Will you let me? She turned to face him, and the vulnerability in his eyes undid her. This powerful, dangerous man was offering himself to her like a gift she might reject. I'm afraid, she whispered. Of me. Of how much I want to believe you. She touched the pendant, feeling its weight. Of how much I want this to be real. It is real. He cupped her face in both hands. Jasmine Williams, I have loved you since I was 17 years old. I love you now more than I did then. And I will love you for the rest of my life, whether you choose me or not. Kongmin. Let me prove it. Give me time. Let me show you that I can be worthy of you. The smart thing would be to say no. To walk away from this beautiful, terrifying man and his dangerous world. But Jasmine had spent 10 years being careful, being safe, building walls to protect herself from hurt. And she was tired of being safe. She kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't thought through. She simply rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his, pouring 10 years of hurt and hope and longing into the contact. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then he groaned, a sound of pure need, and took control of the kiss. His mouth moved over hers with controlled hunger, slow and consuming, his hands tangling in her hair. He kissed her like a man reclaiming something he'd lost and never thought he'd touch again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. Say yes, he murmured against her lips. Say you'll give me a chance. Yes, she breathed. Yes. The smile that crossed his face was pure joy, transforming him from devastating to transcendent. He kissed her again, softer this time, reverent. I'm going to make you so happy, he promised. I swear it. She believed him. The weeks that followed were a dream. Kongmin courted her with single-minded intensity, flowers delivered to her office, lunch brought by his driver on busy days, texts throughout the day that made her blush and smile. He took her to art galleries and hole-in-the-wall restaurants, to the symphony and to karaoke bars in Koreatown. He was attentive and patient, never pushing for more than she was ready to give, but making it clear that he wanted everything. They'd been officially together for 3 weeks when he invited her to his penthouse. Jasmine had been curious about where he lived, this man who seemed to have his fingers in every corner of LA. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building he owned, accessed by private elevator. It was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows, furnishings in shades of graphite and onyx, all minimalist and ruthlessly elegant, art that she recognized from galleries. But it was also warm, books stacked on tables, a guitar in the corner, photos of his mother scattered throughout. You play? She asked, gesturing to the guitar. I did. When I was younger. He pulled her against him, arms wrapping around her waist. Before life got complicated. Play for me now. He hesitated, then picked up the instrument, settling onto the couch. She curled beside him, watching his fingers move over the strings with surprising grace. The melody was soft, melancholy, beautiful. I wrote this the year after I left, he said quietly, still playing. I used to imagine playing it for you. Emotion clogged her throat. It's beautiful. He set the guitar aside and pulled her into his lap, settling into his lap. The position was intimate, their faces inches apart, her hands resting on his shoulders. I want you to know something, he said, his hands settling on her hips. Every day since I found you again, I wake up grateful. Every moment with you feels like a gift I don't deserve. You deserve happiness, Kongmin. I deserve you even less. He kissed her softly. But I'm selfish enough to keep you anyway. The kiss deepened, warmth blooming between them as he pulled her closer. His hands framed her waist, steady and sure, and she felt the last of his restraint slipping away. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against her mouth, breath unsteady. "Say the word, and I will." She didn't. Instead, she slid her hands up his chest, feeling the tension there, the quiet strength, the way he trembled just slightly under her touch. His shirt came off in one smooth motion, and the sight of him stole her breath. The tattoos along his skin were striking, bold lines, traditional patterns, a phoenix sweeping across his shoulder. She traced it gently, her fingers following the curves. "Do they mean something?" she asked softly. "Protection, strength, family." His voice dropped, warm and honest. He touched a smaller design over his heart. "This one is new. I got it after I found you again." She leaned in, seeing the delicate rose ink there, her initials hidden in the petals. "Kongmin. You're written on my skin now," he said quietly. "Where you've always been written on my heart." Something inside her broke open. She kissed him again, deep, certain, choosing him with every breath. The rest of the night unfolded gently, slowly, wrapped in whispered Korean and soft laughter, in the kind of closeness that didn't need to be described to be understood. When they finally lay together afterward, tangled in his sheets with his arms around her, Jasmine felt something shift in her chest. This was real. This was hers. "I love you," she whispered. His arms tightened. "Say it again." "I love you, Choi Kang. She felt him shudder, felt him press a kiss to her hair. "I've waited 10 years to hear those words. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret them." For the first time in a decade, Jasmine believed in happily ever after. The first sign that something was wrong came one afternoon. Jasmine was in session with a client when her receptionist buzzed through, unusual, as she never interrupted sessions. "I'm so sorry, Dr. Williams, but there's a situation in the lobby." Her client, a young woman dealing with anxiety, looked alarmed. Jasmine quickly wrapped up the session and hurried to the front desk. Jason stood in her waiting room. Her heart dropped. "You can't be here. There's a restraining order. I just want to talk." His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. "Please, Jasmine. 5 minutes." "No. You need to leave before I call the police." "Before you call him, you mean?" Jason's voice rose. "Your gangster boyfriend? The one who's been threatening me? What are you talking about?" "Oh, don't play innocent." He stepped closer, and she instinctively moved back. "I know what he is. What his family does. You think I don't see what's happening? You traded up, right? From a marketing director to a crime boss. Jason, you're not well. Please leave." "I'm not well." He laughed, wild and unhinged. "I lost my job because of him. Did you know that? One day I'm up for a promotion, the next I'm being escorted out by security. Funny how that happened right after you started seeing him." Other patients in the waiting room were staring. Jasmine's receptionist had her phone out, already dialing. "This is your last warning," Jasmine said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Leave now or what? He'll make me disappear? That's what men like him do, isn't it?" Jason's eyes filled with tears. "I loved you, Jasmine. I gave you everything. And you threw it away for some tattooed thug with money." Security arrived then, 2 large men who'd appeared seemingly from nowhere. They weren't building security. They were Kongmin's men, always watching, always waiting. Jason saw them and his face crumpled. See? See what I mean? He's got you under surveillance like you're his property." They escorted him out as he shouted accusations, and Jasmine stood in her lobby, shaking, watched by her clients and colleagues with expressions ranging from concern to judgment. Her phone buzzed. "Kongmin, are you safe? My men said there was an incident." "Jasmine, he came to my office. Caused a scene. He said you got him fired?" "Kongmin, we'll talk tonight." "Are you hurt?" "Jasmine, no. But Kongmin, what did you do?" "Kongmin, what I had to. I'll explain everything. I'm sending a car." "Jasmine, I have patience until 6. "Kongmin, then I'll wait." She found him in his penthouse, standing at the window with a glass of whiskey. He turned when she entered, his expression carefully neutral. "Tell me," she said. Jason Hart was fired because evidence came to light that he'd been embezzling from his company. Small amounts over the past year. Enough to be criminal, not enough to be noticed until someone looked closely. Someone being you. Someone being my people, yes. He set down the glass. I had him investigated after the cafe incident. I wanted to know who I was dealing with. What I found was a pattern of obsessive behavior, harassment of multiple ex-girlfriends, and financial impropriety. So you destroyed his career. I made sure the right people saw the evidence they should have found themselves. His voice was calm, reasonable. I also made sure his former victims had the documentation they needed to press charges if they chose to. You're saying he deserved it. I'm saying he was a threat to you. And I eliminate threats. The casual way he said it made her stomach clench. By ruining his life. By revealing who he already was. Kongmin moved toward her, slow and deliberate. Jasmine, men like Jason don't stop. They escalate. Today it was showing up at your office. Tomorrow it could have been following you home. Waiting in your apartment. Hurting you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. His jaw tightened. I've seen it 100 times. Obsession that turns to violence. I wasn't going to wait for him to hurt you to protect you. That's not protection, Kongmin. That's control. Call it what you want. He's not a problem anymore. She stared at him, this beautiful, dangerous man who could end someone's livelihood with a word. Who probably had done far worse in his world, the one she still didn't fully understand. What else? She asked quietly. What else did you do to him? Nothing that wasn't deserved. Nothing that wasn't already coming for him. He reached for her, but she stepped back. The hurt that flashed across his face was quickly masked. Jasmine. You can destroy someone so easily. Her voice shook. With evidence you had investigated, information you paid people to find. You can bend institutions, ruin careers, make problems disappear. Yes. If you can do that to Jason. She wrapped her arms around herself. What could you do to me? The color drained from his face. Jasmine, no. Never. I would never. But you could. The realization was settling in her bones like ice. You could ruin me just as easily. If I made you angry, if I left you, if I... Stop. He was in front of her now, gripping her shoulders. Listen to me. You think I don't know how terrifying this is for you? You think I don't understand that every time I use my power, I'm showing you exactly how dangerous I am? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm a monster, Jasmine. I've done things that would make you run if you knew. I've hurt people. Ruined them. Destroyed them without hesitation. His voice was raw, desperate. But you are the one thing in this world I would never harm. You are the only thing that makes me want to be better. How can I believe that? She was crying now, all the fear and confusion pouring out. How can I trust you when I've seen what you can do? Because I love you more than I love power. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Because hurting you would be destroying the only good thing in my life. Because I would rather cut off my own hand than use it against you. Kongmin. I can't be anything but what I am, he continued. I can't stop being dangerous. I can't stop protecting you, even when it frightens you. But I can promise you this, my power is yours. Everything I have, everything I am, is yours to command. And if you ever want to walk away, I'll let you. I'll protect you from afar, make sure you're safe, and never contact you again if that's what you want. You'd really let me go? It would kill me. His voice broke. But yes. Because keeping you against your will would be the one unforgivable thing. She looked at him, really looked. At the storm simmering behind his eyes, the rigid set of his shoulders, the barely leashed power vibrating under his skin. This man, this weapon of a man, was laying his entire world at her feet. This powerful, terrifying man was offering her everything he had. And she realized, she didn't want him to be anything other than what he was. She wanted his danger, his protection, his fierce, consuming love. She wanted the safety of knowing no one would ever hurt her again. She wanted the thrill of being claimed by someone who could have anyone but chose her. "I'm afraid," she whispered. "Good. Be afraid. But be mine too." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Be mine, and I'll spend every day proving you're safe with me." "Okay," she breathed against his mouth. "Okay." He pulled her close, and she felt him shudder with relief. They stood there, holding each other, as night fell over the city and fear slowly transformed into trust. "I love you," he murmured into her hair. "Even if you hate me for what I am, I love you." "I don't hate you." She looked up at him. "I'm just learning to love all of you. Even the dangerous parts." "Especially the dangerous parts," he corrected, a hint of his usual confidence returning. "Because those are the parts that will never let anything happen to you." She kissed him then, deep, certain, claiming, accepting everything he was offering and everything he was afraid to show. When he lifted her into his arms and carried her toward the bedroom, the world seemed to fall away. The night unfolded in quiet closeness and whispered promises, the kind of intimacy that didn't need to be described to be understood. She was his. He was hers. And heaven help anyone who tried to come between them. 1 year later. Jasmine adjusted the delicate gold necklace at her throat, the rose pendant Kongmin had given her that night at La Rosa. She wore it every day now, a reminder of second chances and promises kept. "You look beautiful." She turned to find Kongmin in the doorway, devastatingly handsome in a black suit, holding a single white rose. The sight still made her heart skip, even after a year of waking up beside him. "You say that every day." "I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives." He crossed the room and pulled her against him, his hands settling possessively on her hips. "Ready for dinner?" "Yes." She smoothed his lapel, admiring the way the fabric moved under her fingers. "For whatever surprise you have planned." "Less certain." His smile was pure mischief. "Trust me." They'd fallen into a rhythm over the past year, her therapy practice thriving, his business expanding, their lives intertwining in ways that felt both natural and miraculous. She'd learned to navigate his world, the bodyguards who appeared whenever she left her building, the way restaurants cleared tables for them, the careful dance of loving a man whose power was absolute. She'd also learned to wield that power herself. When one of her clients had been threatened by an abusive ex, one call to Kongmin had resulted in a restraining order that was actually enforced, security measures that couldn't be bypassed, and resources to start over safely. "You're thinking too hard," Kongmin murmured, kissing her temple. "Just remembering how far we've come. We've barely started." His hand found hers, fingers lacing together in a gesture that had become second nature. "I have plans for us, Jasmine Williams." The car took them to La Rosa, as it did last Valentine's Day. It had become their tradition, recreating that first perfect date, rewriting the ending over and over until the painful memory was buried under beautiful ones. But tonight, something was different. The private patio had been transformed into something magical, thousands of white lights, roses everywhere, candles creating a pathway to their table. Soft music played from somewhere unseen. "Kongmin, what?" "Every year, I want to give you the evening you deserved," he said, guiding her forward. "Last year, I gave you the dinner. This year, I want to give you the promise." He knelt, and Jasmine's breath stopped. The ring box in his hand was black velvet, and when he opened it, the diamond inside caught the candlelight like a captive star. "Jasmine Williams, you are my redemption and my ruin. You are the softness in my violence, the light in my darkness. You are everything I never knew I needed and everything I never want to live without." His voice was steady, but his eyes were bright with emotion. "Will you marry me?" "Yes." The word burst out before he'd even finished. "Yes, yes, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, like everything about them, and stood to kiss her. She could taste his relief, his joy, his absolute devotion in that kiss. "I have something for you too," she said when they finally broke apart. She pulled an envelope from her purse and handed it to him. Inside was a sleek black luggage tag engraved with her name. He turned it over. In tiny script on the back. "Soul. With you." Kongmin's head lifted sharply, eyes locking on hers, not confused but struck. "You told me once you have family there. That your grandfather shaped you into the man you became." She took his hand. "I want to meet them." I want to know every part of you, even the parts you think will scare me. His throat worked. Jasmine. I'm not afraid anymore, she continued. I'm not afraid of your world or your family or your past. Because I know who you are now. You're the man who crosses the city to bring me lunch when I'm too busy to eat. Who reads psychology journals so he can understand my work. Who holds me when I wake from nightmares and makes sure I never face anything alone. You're the only person who sees me and doesn't flinch, he said roughly. I see you and I choose you. Every day. Every way. She kissed him softly. So yes, I'll marry you. And I'll stand beside you in Seoul, in LA, anywhere you need me. They sat at the table, but the meal was forgotten. They simply held hands and talked about the future, about the wedding they'd plan, the life they'd build, the family they might create. About growing old together, about being each other's home. When the evening ended and they stood to leave, Kongmin pulled her close one more time. Do you know what I thought about all those years ago? He murmured against her hair. When I was on that plane to Seoul, knowing I'd missed our date? What? I thought, if I ever see her again, I'll never let her go. His arms tightened. I'm here now, Jasmine. And I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise. He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of forever. Every Valentine's Day for the rest of our lives, I'll show up. I'll be here. I'll be yours. And he was. Every year, they returned to La Rosa. Every year, he brought her a white rose. Every year, he whispered the same promise, I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. And every year, she believed him a little more. Because Choi Kang was dangerous, powerful, and absolutely terrifying to anyone who threatened what he loved. But to Jasmine Williams, soon to be Jasmine Choi, he was simply hers. And that was the only truth that mattered. 2 years later, on their wedding anniversary, Jasmine woke to find Kongmin already awake, watching her with that expression that still made her melt. Good morning, Mrs. Choi. She smiled, stretching like a cat. Good morning, husband. Their bedroom in the penthouse was flooded with morning light, and she could see the LA skyline beyond the windows. Her therapy practice had expanded to 3 locations. Kongmin's empire had grown more legitimate, though she knew he'd never be entirely clean. But they'd found balance, her light and his darkness creating something beautiful together. I have something for you, he said, producing a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate bracelet, each charm representing a moment in their relationship, a rose, a calendar marking February 14th, a tiny book for the girl he'd first loved, a diamond for their engagement. Every year, I'll add another charm, he explained, fastening it around her wrist. A map of our life together. She kissed him, deep and slow, the kind of kiss that led to them being late for everything. I love you, she murmured against his mouth. I love you more. His hands found her waist, pulling her on top of him. And I'll spend every day proving it. And he did. Every day, every night, every moment. Because some love stories don't start with love at first sight. Some start with heartbreak and time and learning to trust again. Some start with a boy who couldn't show up and a man who spent 10 years finding his way back. And some end with forever.